The sky burned orange and red as another explosion lit up the horizon. Ambassador Tellus pressed his thin body against the cold stone wall of the government building. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as fear took hold of his heart. The Vallani people had lived in peace for 3,000 years. They had never known war. They had never needed weapons. Now the Krovar had come, and everything was ending. Telos watched through the cracked window as massive warships filled the sky above his homeworld. There were hundreds of them. Each ship was the size of a small mountain. Their dark metal hulls blocked out the sun, and their weapons glowed with deadly energy. The Krovar were known across the galaxy as conquerors. They took what they wanted. They destroyed what they could not take. The Vallani had nothing to fight back with. Their ships were made for trade and exploration. Their people were scholars and artists. They had no soldiers. They had no weapons. They had only hope, and that hope was fading fast. "Ambassador?" a young aide called out. Her name was Vera, and her purple skin had gone pale with terror. "The Krovar commander is broadcasting again." Telos moved slowly toward the communication screen. His old legs felt weak. On the screen appeared the face of a Krovar warlord. The creature was massive, with thick gray skin and tusks that curved upward from its lower jaw. Its eyes were small and filled with cruelty. "People of Vallani," the warlord spoke in a deep voice. "I am War Chief Garin. Your planet now belongs to the Krovar Empire. You will surrender all resources. You will surrender all technology. You will surrender your lives to our service. Those who resist will be destroyed. You have 1 rotation of your sun to comply." The screen went dark. Vera let out a small cry. Other aides gathered around, their faces showing the same hopeless fear. Telos looked at each of them. These were his people. Good people. Kind people. They did not deserve this fate. "There must be something we can do," Vera whispered. Telos closed his 4 eyes. There was one thing. One terrible, desperate thing. But the very thought of it made his blood run cold. Long ago, before his time, the Galactic Council had discovered a planet in a distant arm of the galaxy. The planet was beautiful from space, with blue oceans and green land. But when the first explorers landed, they found a nightmare. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen that burned the lungs. The water fell from the sky in sheets that could drown a person. Predators roamed every corner of the world. Diseases spread through the air. Radiation poured down from the sun. By all logic, nothing intelligent should have survived on such a world. But something had. Beings had evolved there. They had grown strong in ways that terrified the rest of the galaxy. They called themselves humans. The galaxy called them Deathworlders. The Galactic Council had made a decision long ago. They would not contact the humans. They would not trade with them. They would pretend they did not exist. Because the humans were too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too wild. But there was an old frequency. A channel that reached into human space. It was meant for emergencies only. No one had ever used it. "Ambassador," Vera said, "what are you thinking?" Telos opened his eyes. "I am thinking of doing something forbidden." He walked to an old console in the corner of the room. Dust covered its surface. No one had touched it in 100 years. Telos wiped the dust away and began pressing buttons. The machine hummed to life. "Sir," another aide spoke up, "that is the emergency beacon. The one that reaches the Deathwalder sector." "I know what it is," Telos replied. "But the Council forbids contact with humans. They say the humans are monsters. They say they eat the flesh of other creatures. They say they keep predators as companions. They say they wage war for sport." Telos turned to face his staff. "The Krovar will kill us all. They will enslave our children. They will burn our cities. The Council cannot help us. Our allies cannot help us. If we are to die, I would rather die trying something mad than die doing nothing at all." He turned back to the console and began recording a message. "To any vessel in Terran space. This is Ambassador Telos of the Volani homeworld. We are under attack by the Krovar Empire. Our people face complete destruction. We have no weapons. We have no fleet. We are scientists and artists. We are not warriors. Please, if there is any mercy in your hearts, help us. This is our final plea." He pressed the send button. The signal flew out into the darkness of space, carrying the desperate hope of an entire world far across the galaxy. Captain Yuna sat in the command chair of the TSS Ironclad. She was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her uniform was neat, and her posture was perfect. She had served in the Terran Space Fleet for 15 years. She had seen battles that would make most aliens faint. But today was supposed to be a quiet day. The Ironclad was patrolling the edge of Terran space. It was routine work. Boring work. Yuna was reading reports on her tablet when her communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission on the emergency frequency." Yuna looked up. The emergency frequency was old. Ancient, really. It had been set up centuries ago when humans first made contact with other species. No one ever used it. "Put it through," she ordered. The voice of Ambassador Telos filled the bridge. His words were broken by static, but his fear was clear. When the message ended, silence fell over the crew. Lieutenant Hannah was the first to speak. She was young, barely 25, with a round face and kind eyes. "Captain, the Volani are a peaceful species. They have no military. If the Krovar are attacking them, they will be slaughtered," Commander Tay finished. He stood beside the captain's chair, tall and serious. His arms were crossed over his chest. "The Krovar are brutal. They take slaves. They strip planets bare." Yuna stared at the star map on the main screen. The Volani homeworld was far away. It was beyond the borders of Terran space. Going there would break a dozen regulations. The Galactic Council had made it clear that humans were to stay in their own sector. They were not welcome in galactic affairs. How long would it take to reach them? Yuna asked. "At maximum speed, 18 hours, the navigation officer replied. "That is outside our jurisdiction," Tay said carefully. Command would not approve. Yuna stood up from her chair. She walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying. Children were crying. Families were being torn apart. And the galaxy had decided that humans were too dangerous to help. "I joined the fleet to protect people," Yuna said quietly. "I did not join to follow rules while innocents burn." She turned back to face her crew. Every face showed the same thought. They were human. They had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had fought for survival since the first human drew breath. But they had also learned something else on that harsh world. They had learned to protect each other. They had learned that the strong must defend the weak. "Contact the other ships in our patrol group," Yuna ordered. "Tell them what we received. Ask them if they will follow." Within an hour, 8 more ships had answered. Their captains had heard the message. They had made the same choice. "Course plotted for the Volani system," the navigation officer announced. "All ships report ready," Hana added. "Commander." Tay stepped up beside Yuna. "You know this could end your career. This could end all our careers." Yuna smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Then we will find new careers. But I will not sit here while good people die." She raised her hand. "All ships, engage engines. Maximum speed." The fleet jumped to hyperspace. 9 Terran warships cut through the darkness like arrows. Each ship was built for war. Each ship was crewed by humans who had evolved on a death world. They were stronger than most aliens, faster, more durable. Their bones were dense. Their muscles were powerful. Their reflexes were sharp. But more than that, they were determined. Once a human decided to fight for something, they did not stop. They did not surrender. They did not give up. The Krovar had no idea what was coming. On the Vellani homeworld, Telos waited. He did not truly expect an answer to his message. The humans were a myth to most Vellani, a scary story told to children. But he had sent the signal anyway, because he had no other choice. The Krovar ships began their bombardment at dawn. Buildings exploded. Fires spread through the cities. Vellani ran through the streets, screaming and crying. There was nowhere to hide. There was no one to save them. Telos stood on the roof of the government building, watching his world burn. Vera stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. "I am sorry," Telos said. "I brought us false hope." Vera shook her head. "You tried, Ambassador. That is more than anyone else did." They waited for death, but death did not come. Instead, the sky tore open. Bright light exploded across the clouds as 9 ships burst out of hyperspace. They were unlike anything the Vellani had ever seen. Each ship was covered in heavy armor. Each ship bristled with weapons. They moved with speed and purpose, taking formation between the planet and the Krovar fleet. On the Krovar flagship, War Chief Goran stared at his sensors in confusion. "What is this?" he demanded. "What ships are those?" His tactical officer checked the readings twice before answering. "Unknown design, War Chief, but they are broadcasting an identification signal." The officer paused, his face going pale. "They identify as Terran. They are humans." Goran had heard stories about humans. Everyone had. They were the creatures that live. The first Krovar missiles screamed across the void. There were hundreds of them, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon. War Chief Goran watched from his command throne with a satisfied grin. These foolish humans had come to die, and he would grant their wish. On the bridge of the Ironclad, alarms blared. The tactical display showed a wall of fire racing toward them. Any other fleet would have panicked. Any other crew would have tried to run. Captain Yuna simply adjusted her position in her chair. "Point defense systems online," she ordered calmly. "All ships, maintain formation." The 9 Terran vessels moved as one. Their guns came alive, filling the space around them with a storm of counterfire. Missiles exploded before they could reach their targets. The darkness of space became bright with fire and light. When the smoke cleared, not a single human ship had been touched on the Krovar flagship. The tactical officer stared at his screen with wide eyes. "War Chief, they stopped everything. All of our missiles." Goran leaned forward. "That is not possible." "The readings do not lie, War Chief. Their defensive systems are unlike anything in our records." Goran was not used to surprise. He was not used to failure. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had crushed armies that outnumbered his forces 10 to 1. These 9 little ships should have been dust by now. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Send the first wave." Thousands of Krovar fighters poured out of the massive warships. They were small and fast, designed to overwhelm enemies with numbers. The pilots inside were warriors who had trained their whole lives for battle. "Commander," Tay watched them approach on the ironclad sensors. "Captain, they are sending approximately 4,000 fighters." Yuna nodded. "Launch our squadrons." The Terran carriers opened their bays. Human fighters shot out into space, their engines burning bright. There were only 200 of them. Against 4,000 Krovar, the numbers seemed hopeless. But the Krovar did not understand who they were fighting. The human pilots had trained in conditions that would kill most aliens. They'd practiced in simulators with gravity so high that bones could break. They flew through asteroid fields at speeds that turned mistakes into death. They did not fear battle. They welcomed it. Lieutenant Hana coordinated the fighter wings from the Ironclad's bridge. Her voice was steady as she gave orders. Alpha Wing, engage the left flank. Beta Wing, draw them in. Gamma Wing, hit them from behind. The human fighters tore into the Crovar formation like wolves among sheep. Their ships were faster and more nimble. Their pilots reacted quicker and thought clearer. In the first minute of combat, 300 Crovar fighters were destroyed. The Crovar pilots had never faced anything like this. Their enemies usually fled or died quickly. These humans did neither. They attacked with a ferocity that was terrifying. They took hits that should have killed them and kept fighting. One Crovar pilot managed to get behind a human fighter. He locked his weapons and fired. The blast hit the human ship directly. But instead of exploding, the human ship spun around, trailing smoke, and fired back. The Crovar pilot died before he could understand what had happened. Their ships are damaged but still fighting, a Crovar squadron leader reported in a panicked voice. These creatures do not die like normal beings. On the surface of the Villani homeworld, Ambassador Telos watched the battle through a telescope. His hearts were pounding so hard, he thought they might burst. He had never seen such violence. He had never seen such skill. They are winning, Vera breathed beside him. The humans are actually winning. Telos could not believe it. 9 ships against 300. 200 fighters against 4,000. By every rule of war, the humans should be losing. But they were not done in space. The Crovar fighter force was crumbling. Less than half remained, and more were dying every second. The human pilots showed no mercy. They chased down fleeing enemies. They worked together with perfect coordination. They fought as if losing was not something they understood. War Chief Goran watched his tactical display turn red with losses. Rage burned in his chest. These humans were making fools of his warriors. Enough games, he growled. All capital ships advance. We will crush them with our main weapons. The Crovar fleet began to move. 300 massive warships formed a wall of metal and firepower. Their main cannons charged with enough energy to crack a planet. Against such overwhelming force, 9 human ships should have been nothing. Captain Yuna stood from her chair. Recall fighters. All ships, prepare for close engagement. Commander Tay moved to stand beside her. Captain, their flagship is in the center of their formation. If we can break through and reach it, we can end this. That is a lot of ships to break through, Yuna replied. It is, she smiled. Then we better get started. The human fighters returned to their carriers. The 9 Terran warships formed a tight formation and began moving forward. They did not retreat. They did not try to run. They accelerated directly toward the Crovar fleet. Goran could not believe what he was seeing. They are charging us? Are they insane? His officers had no answer. The Crovar fleet opened fire. Beams of energy shot across space. Massive shells flew toward the human ships. The amount of firepower was incredible. It was enough to destroy a small fleet 10 times over. The Ironclad was hit first. The blast struck the front of the ship and exploded against the hull. Fire and smoke poured from the wound. Any normal ship would have been destroyed, but the Ironclad was not a normal ship. It was built by humans, for humans. Its armor was thick and strong. Its structure was designed to take punishment that would break other vessels. The damage was real, but the ship kept moving. Hull breach on Deck 7, an officer reported. Damage control teams responding. Yuna did not even blink. Continue advance. More hits landed on the human ships. Each one caused damage. Each one left scars. But none of them stopped the advance. The 9 Terran vessels pushed forward through a storm of fire, taking hit after hit and refusing to fall. The Krovar crews began to feel something they had never felt before: fear. "Why won't they die?" one officer whispered. "They are Deathworlders," another answered. "They come from a world that kills everything. Pain means nothing to them. Damage means nothing to them. They just keep coming." The human fleet broke through the first line of Krovar ships. Their weapons fired as they passed, destroying 2 enemy vessels with precise shots. They did not slow down. They pushed deeper into the enemy formation. On the Volani surface, thousands of citizens had gathered to watch the battle. They stood in the streets, in the fields, on the rooftops. They watched the lights in the sky and prayed for the impossible. "Look at them," Tella said softly. "They are bleeding. They are hurting. But they do not stop." Vera wiped tears from her eyes. "Why? Why would they fight so hard for strangers?" Tella shook his head. "I do not know, but I will never forget this." In space, the battle reached its peak. The human ships were now surrounded by enemies on all sides. Their hulls were blackened and torn. Fires burned inside them. Crew members worked frantically to keep systems running, but they were also causing terrible damage to the Krovar. Every shot from a human weapon found its target. Every maneuver was perfect. They fought as if they had trained for this moment their entire lives. Lieutenant Hana was working 3 stations at once. Sweat ran down her face, but her hands never stopped moving. Shield generators are at 40%. Weapon systems still operational. Engine power holding. Commander Tay was directing damage control from his position. His uniform was covered in dust, and his face had a cut across one cheek. "We have lost 17 crew members. Medical teams are overwhelmed." Captain Yuna listened to every report. Her ship was dying around her. Her people were dying around her. But she could see the Krovar flagship ahead. It was close now. So close. All ships. She spoke into the fleet communication channel. "We are almost there. Give me everything you have. For Earth, for humanity. For those who cannot fight for themselves." The human fleet made its final push. They broke through the last line of Krovar defenders and surrounded the enemy flagship. Their weapons locked onto the massive vessel. War. Chief Garn stared at the human ships on his view screen. They were all damaged. Some were barely holding together. But they were there, surrounding his flagship, their weapons aimed at his bridge. "This is impossible," he said. "You should be dead. All of you should be dead." Captain Yuna's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired. There was blood on her forehead from a wound, but her eyes were still hard. Her voice was still cold. "We do not die easily," she said. "Surrender now, and your crew will be spared. Krovar do not surrender. Then Krovar will die." Doran looked at his tactical display. His fleet was in chaos. The human fighters had rejoined the battle and were picking off his damaged ships. His remaining vessels were too scared to approach the flagship. Morale was broken. He had underestimated these creatures. He had thought them primitive savages from a backwater world. He had been wrong. "If I surrender," he said slowly, "what happens to my people? You will leave this system. You will never return. You will release any Volani prisoners you have taken. If you break these terms, we will find you. And we will finish what we started here today." Goran was silent for a long moment. He had never lost a battle. He had never known defeat. The shame of this moment would follow him forever, but he was not ready to die. "I accept your terms," he said. The words in the morning after the battle was quiet. The Krovar fleet had retreated beyond the edge of the star system, but War Chief Garn had not left entirely. His remaining ships gathered in the darkness, licking their wounds and planning their revenge. Captain Yuna knew this. She stood on the observation deck of the ironclad, looking out at the stars. The Volani homeworld floated peacefully below, its cities still showing scars from the bombardment. But the fires were out now. The people were safe for the moment. Commander Tay entered the observation deck. His arm was in a sling from an injury during the battle. His face showed the exhaustion they all felt. "Captain, damage reports are complete," he said. "3 of our 9 ships need major repairs. 2 more have limited combat capability. We lost 63 crew members in the battle." Yuna closed her eyes. 63 families would receive terrible news. 63 empty seats at dinner tables. 63 futures that would never be. "And the Krovar?" she asked. "They lost approximately 80 ships and most of their fighter wings. Our intelligence suggests they still have over 200 vessels. They are regrouping beyond the outer planets. They will attack again. Almost certainly. Goran is not the type to accept defeat. He will want revenge." Yuna opened her eyes and turned to face her commander. "Then we need to be ready. What is the status of the Volani?" "Their cities are damaged but standing. They have no military capability to speak of. A few security forces, nothing more. They are completely dependent on us for protection." It was a heavy burden. 9 damaged ships against 200 fresh ones. Even for Deathworlders, those were difficult odds. "Has the Volani ambassador requested a meeting?" Yuna asked. "He has been asking since the battle ended. He is very eager to speak with you." Yuna nodded. "Arrange it. I should meet the people we are fighting for." An hour later, a small shuttle landed on the ironclad's flight deck. Ambassador Tellus stepped out, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. He had never been on an alien ship before. Everything about it was different from Volani design. The metal was thicker. The corridors were narrower. The gravity felt heavier. Lieutenant Hannah met him at the airlock. She smiled warmly, trying to put the nervous alien at ease. "Ambassador Tellus, welcome to the ironclad. I am Lieutenant Hannah. I will take you to Captain Yuna." Tellus bowed deeply. "Thank you, Lieutenant. I cannot express how grateful my people are for what you have done." "We were just doing what was right," Hannah replied. She led him through the ship. Tellus looked at everything with fascination. Human crew members passed by, nodding politely. Some of them had bandages on their wounds. Some of them limped. But all of them were working, fixing their ship, preparing for the next fight. "Your people are remarkable," Tellus said. "They fought against impossible odds and won. Now they are already preparing to fight again. Do humans never rest?" Hannah laughed softly. "We rest when we can. But right now, there is work to be done." They reached the captain's ready room. Hannah pressed a button, and the door slid open. Inside, Captain Yuna sat behind a small desk. She stood when Tellus entered. The ambassador was surprised by how small she was. Among the Volani, leaders were often the largest and oldest. But this human female was neither. She was young by galactic standards and barely reached his shoulder. Yet there was something in her eyes that made him understand why people followed her. "Ambassador Tellus," Yuna said, extending her hand. Tellus had studied human customs. He knew this was called a handshake. He reached out and grasped her hand with his thin fingers. Her grip was strong but gentle. "Captain Yuna," he replied, "I have come to thank you on behalf of all Volani. You have saved our world. We can never repay this debt." Yuna gestured for him to sit. "There is no debt, Ambassador. We received your distress call, and we responded. That is what we do." Tellus settled into the chair. It was designed for humans and felt strange to his body, but he did not complain. "I must confess, Captain, that my people have long feared humans. The stories we heard, they painted your kind as dangerous predators, savage creatures who could not be trusted. Many species feel that way about us, Eunice said. We are aware of our reputation, but those stories were wrong. You came to help strangers. You risked your lives for people you had never met. You lost soldiers protecting a world that is not your own. How can such beings be called savage? Una was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the stars before answering. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day, she said. Our planet has predators with teeth as long as your arm, storms that can destroy cities, diseases that spread through the air, temperatures that swing from burning hot to freezing cold. By all logic, we should have died out long ago, but you did not. No, we survived because we learned to work together. We protected each other. We shared food when it was scarce. We fought side by side against dangers. That instinct to protect the weak, it is written into our very nature. When we heard your call for help, we could not ignore it. It would have been against everything we are. Talos felt moisture forming in his eyes. He had expected many things from humans: strength, ferocity, danger. He had not expected wisdom. He had not expected compassion. The Krovar will return, he said. War Chief Garin will not accept this defeat. I know. You are outnumbered badly. Your ships are damaged. If they attack with their full remaining force, we will fight. Yuna's voice was firm. We will hold this line as long as we can, even if it means your death, if necessary. Some things are worth dying for. Talos stood from his chair. His legs felt weak, but his heart felt strong. Then you will not fight alone. My people are not warriors. We have no weapons or ships, but we have minds and hands. We will do everything we can to support you. Yuna stood as well. Ambassador, I appreciate the offer, but I do not want your people in danger. This is not your fight. With respect, Captain, it is absolutely our fight. The Krovar came for us. They will destroy us if you fail. And beyond that, he paused, searching for the right words. You have shown us what true courage looks like. You have reminded us that there are things worth fighting for. We cannot match your strength, but we can stand beside you. For the first time since Telos had met her, Captain Yuna smiled. It was a tired smile, warmed by battle and loss. But it was genuine. Very well, Ambassador. We will stand together. On the other side of the star system, War Chief Garin raged aboard his flagship. He had thrown furniture across his quarters. He had broken ancient weapons that hung on his walls. His officers stayed far away, afraid of his fury. Deathworlders, he growled. Filthy, primitive Deathworlders. His tactical advisor finally found the courage to enter. He was an older Krovar named Rock, and he had served Garin for many years. War Chief, the fleet has completed repairs. We are ready to attack again. Good. We will crush them this time. No more games. No more testing. We will throw everything at them at once. Rock hesitated. War Chief, I must advise caution. The humans fight unlike any enemy we have faced. They do not break. They do not flee. Throwing our forces at them directly may result in more losses than we can afford. Garin grabbed Rock by the throat and lifted him off the ground. The older Krovar choked and struggled. You dare suggest that we fear these humans? I suggest nothing. War Chief. Rock gasped. I merely advise a different approach. Garin held him for a moment longer, then dropped him to the floor. Speak then. What approach? Rock coughed and rubbed his throat. The humans care about the Villani. That is why they came. That is their weakness. If we threaten the planet directly, they will try to protect it. They will spread their forces thin, and then we can isolate and destroy them one by one. Goran considered this. It was not an honorable strategy, but honor had not defeated the humans in the first battle. Perhaps dishonor would serve better. Continue, he said. We send half our fleet to attack the human ships directly. While they are engaged, the other half circles around and strikes the planet. The humans will have to choose: fight us in space or protect the surface. Either way, they lose. A cruel smile spread across Goran's face. I like this plan. Prepare the fleet. We attack at dawn. Back on the Vallani homeworld, preparations were underway. Lieutenant Hanna had landed with a team of engineers to help strengthen the planet's defenses. They worked alongside Vallani volunteers, building shelters and early warning systems. Hanna was amazed by how quickly the Vallani adapted. They had no experience with war, but they learned fast. Within hours, they were operating human equipment and following military procedures. You are doing very well, she told a young Vallani named Kira. He was helping her set up a sensor station. Thank you, Lieutenant. We are not used to such things. But when your home is in danger, you find strength you did not know you had. Hanna nodded. That is true for all species, I think. May I ask you a question? Of course. Kira finished connecting a wire and looked at her with his 4 eyes. Why do humans do this? Why do you fight for strangers? Your galaxy is far away. You could have ignored our call and been safe. Hanna thought about the question. She thought about her home on Earth, the green hills and blue skies. She thought about her family and friends. She thought about why she had joined the fleet. The Krovar fleet came like a storm of metal and fire. 100 ships in the main attack force headed straight for Captain Yuna and her 5 vessels. The other 100 circled wide, aiming for the vulnerable planet below. Yuna stood on the bridge of the ironclad, watching the enemy approach on her tactical display. She had fought many battles in her career. She had won most of them, but she had never faced odds this terrible. Captain, Commander Tay spoke from beside her. The main enemy force will reach us in 15 minutes. The flanking force will reach the planet in 20. Then we need to break the main force quickly and get back to help the defense, breaking through 100 ships with 5 vessels. I know the math. Commander. Yuna's voice was calm but firm. We do it anyway. She opened a channel to her attack group. The other 4 captains appeared on her screen. They were all veterans. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be their last. Here is the plan, Yuna said. We hit them hard and fast. Maximum speed, maximum firepower. We do not stop for anything. Our goal is their command ships in the center. Take those out, and their coordination falls apart. Captain Sung of the TSS Vanguard nodded. He was an older man with gray hair and steady eyes. Straight through the middle. Just like training. Except training did not shoot back this hard. Captain Myra of the TSS Thunder added with a grim smile. She was young but had proven herself in a dozen engagements. Stay tight, Yuna continued. Cover each other. And whatever happens, do not stop moving. Speed is our advantage. If we slow down, they surround us. If they surround us, we die. Captain Jun of the TSS Storm finished. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless necessary. Exactly. Any questions? There were none. Then let us show these Krovar what Deathworlders can do. The 5 human ships accelerated to maximum speed. Their engines burned bright against the darkness of space. They formed a tight wedge formation, with the ironclad at the point. The Krovar main force saw them coming. War Chief Goran watched from his command ship, positioned safely behind the front lines. He expected the humans to try some clever trick, some sneaky maneuver. He did not expect them to charge directly into the heart of his fleet. "They are insane," his tactical officer said. "They cannot possibly think they can break through that many ships." "They are Deathworlders," Goran replied. "Insanity is in their nature. All ships, fire at will. Destroy them." The Krovar fleet opened up with everything they had. Beams of energy crossed the void. Missiles screamed through space. The amount of firepower was staggering. It was enough to destroy a planet. The Ironclad took the first hits. Her shields flashed and flickered. Her armor glowed red from the heat. Alarms sounded across the ship. Damage reports flooded in, but she did not slow down. "Shields at 60%, Lieutenant Hanna reported from her station. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 12. "Keep going," Una ordered. "Return fire." The human ships answered the Krovar assault with weapons designed on a death world. Their guns hit harder than anything the Krovar had expected. Their targeting was precise and deadly. Even as they took damage, they destroyed enemy ships with every shot. The wedge formation punched into the Krovar line like a knife through flesh. Human ships passed through gaps in the enemy formation, firing in all directions. Krovar vessels exploded left and right. Goran watched his fleet start to panic. Ships were breaking formation. Captains were shouting confused orders. The humans moved too fast, hit too hard. "Regroup?" He screamed into his communicator. "Maintain discipline." But discipline was failing. The Krovar were warriors, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to stop. Human ships took hits that should have killed them and kept fighting. Human crews worked through fire and smoke to keep their weapons firing. It was like fighting ghosts that could not be killed. Captain Sung's Vanguard took a direct hit to the engine section. The explosion tore through half the ship. Any other vessel would have stopped dead. But Sung rerouted power through emergency systems and kept pushing forward. "This is Vanguard." His voice came through the fleet channel. "Engine 2 is gone. Navigation is failing. But I still have weapons. I am still in this fight." "Soon, pull back," Una ordered. "You have done enough." "With respect, Captain, I will pull back when the battle is over. Not before." The Vanguard continued forward, listing badly but still firing. The human formation broke through the center of the Krovar fleet. They were now behind the front line, among the command ships. Goran's flagship was directly ahead. "Target the flagship," Una ordered. "All ships, concentrate fire." The 5 human vessels, battered and burning, turned their weapons on War Chief Goran's command ship. Their combined firepower slammed into its shields. Goran felt his ship shake from the impact. Warning lights flashed across his bridge. His officers shouted damage reports. "Shields failing. Hull breach on the port side. We are losing power." Goran gripped the arms of his command throne. He could not believe this was happening. 5 ships? Just 5 ships had torn through 100 of his best vessels and were now destroying his flagship. "All ships, protect the command vessel," he roared. Krovar ships began turning to help, but the human attack group was already doing terrible damage. The flagship's shields collapsed entirely. Its hull began to tear apart. Then, something unexpected happened. Captain Sung's Vanguard, barely holding together, positioned itself between the flagship and the returning Krovar defenders. He was blocking their shots with his own damaged ship. "Vanguard, what are you doing?" Una demanded. "Giving you time, Captain. Finish the flagship. I will hold them." Krovar weapons pounded the Vanguard from all sides. The ship could not take much more. Systems failed one after another. Fires spread through the corridors. Crew members died at their stations, but Sung held the line. "Sung, get out of there!" Una shouted. "Not yet, Captain." You are almost through. The ironclad's weapons hit the Krovar flagship's reactor. The explosion was massive, tearing the great ship in half. War Chief Garin had just enough time to feel fear before everything went white. The flagship was destroyed. Goran was dead, but so was the Vanguard. Sung's ship finally gave out, breaking apart in a shower of fire and metal. The crew had fought to the very last moment. Yuna watched the Vanguard die and felt her heart break. But there was no time for grief. The battle was not over. All surviving ships report status. Only 3 other captains responded. Mira, Jun, and 1 other. 4 ships left from the attack group. And behind them, the Krovar fleet was falling into chaos. Without their war chief, the Krovar had no clear leader. Captains argued over who should take command. Some ships began to retreat. Others kept fighting without coordination. "They are breaking," Commander Tay reported. "The main force is crumbling." But Yuna was already looking at the other tactical display. The flanking force was reaching the planet. "We cannot celebrate yet. The planet is still in danger." She opened a channel to the defending ships. "Defense Group, what is your status?" Lieutenant Commander Kang responded. His voice was strained. "Captain, we are engaging the flanking force. 100 ships against 4. We are holding, but barely. Hold a little longer. We are coming." Yuna turned to her helmsman. "Maximum speed to the planet. Every ship that can still move, follow me." 4 battered human vessels turned away from the confused Krovar main force and raced toward their homeworld. Behind them, Krovar ships tried to pursue but ran into each other as they argued over commands. At the planet, the defending human ships were fighting desperately. 4 vessels against 100 was impossible math. But they were buying time for the surface defenses to activate and for civilians to reach shelters. Lieutenant Hana had not made it back to the ironclad before the attack began. She was on the surface, helping coordinate the ground defense. Vellani volunteers manned sensor stations and communication relays under her direction. "Enemy ships are beginning bombardment runs," a Vellani operator reported. "Track their attack patterns." Hana ordered. "Relay all targeting data to our ships." Ambassador Telos stood nearby, watching the sky fill with fire and light. His people ran through the streets seeking shelter. Children cried. Elders prayed. "Lieutenant," he said, "if we do not survive this, I want you to know that meeting humans has changed everything I believe about the galaxy." Hana managed a small smile despite the danger. "We will survive, Ambassador. Help is coming." Above them, the 4 defending ships fought with everything they had. They were outnumbered 25 to 1. They took hit after hit. One ship, the TSS Guardian, lost its main weapons and resorted to ramming into enemy vessels, sacrificing itself to protect the planet. Then, just when it seemed hope was fading, 4 more ships appeared from around the planet's curve. The ironclad led them, battered but unbroken. "Defense Group, reinforcements have arrived," Yuna announced. "Let us finish this together." The combined human force, now 7 ships, tore into the flanking force. The Krovar, already shaken by news of their war chief's death, began to panic. Their attack fell apart. Within an hour, the remaining Krovar ships were fleeing. They scattered in all directions, running for the edges of the system and beyond. Some would make it back to Krovar space. Others would be hunted down by human fighters, but the battle was over. Vellani was saved. Again, on the surface, the Vellani emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw only human ships standing guard. The enemy's U-3 days had passed since the second battle. The Krovar survivors had fled beyond the system, and for the first time in weeks, peace had settled over Vellani homeworld. But peace did not mean rest. Captain Yuna stood in the medical bay of the ironclad, visiting the wounded. The room was full. Human crew members lay in beds, some missing limbs, some covered in burns. Medical staff moved between them, doing what they could. Yuna stopped at each bed. She knew every face, every name. These were her people. They had followed her into impossible battles. Many of them would never fight again. "Captain," a young ensign said from his bed. His right arm was gone below the elbow. "Did we win?" "We won, Ensign Park. The Vellani are safe." He smiled despite his pain. "Good. That is good." Yuna held his remaining hand for a moment. "You were brave. I am proud of you." She moved on, repeating similar words to each wounded soldier. It was exhausting work, but necessary. These people deserved to know that their sacrifice meant something. Commander Tay found her after she left the medical bay. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. None of them had slept much since the first battle began. "Captain, we have received a communication from Terran Command." Yuna's expression tightened. "What do they say?" "They have reviewed our actions. Officially, we violated numerous regulations by leaving our patrol area and engaging in combat outside Terran space." "And unofficially?" Tay allowed himself a small smile. "Unofficially, the admirals are very impressed. Our actions have changed everything. The Galactic Council has taken notice. Apparently, the Vellani ambassador has been telling everyone about the brave Deathworlders who saved his people. Talos is a good person. He is also a powerful speaker. His broadcasts have reached dozens of worlds. Species that feared humans are now asking questions. They want to know if humans would help them, too." Yuna walked to a viewport and looked out at the stars. The Vellani planet glowed blue and green below. It was beautiful. It was worth fighting for. "What are Command's orders?" she asked. "We are to remain here until reinforcements arrive. A full battle group is being sent, along with humanitarian aid for the Vellani. After that," Tay paused. "After that, we are to return home as heroes." "Heroes." Yuna said the word like it tasted strange. "We lost 40% of our fleet. Hundreds of good people died. And we are heroes? To the Vellani, yes. To many others, yes. We showed the galaxy that humans are not the monsters they feared. That is worth something, Captain." Yuna did not respond. She was still thinking about Captain Soong, about the crew of the Guardian, about all the faces she would never see again on the planet below. Ambassador Talos was preparing for something he had never imagined. He stood in the great hall of the Vellani government, surrounded by diplomats and leaders from across the galaxy. Holographic screens showed representatives from 100 different worlds, all watching, all listening. "Friends and neighbors of the Galactic Council," Talos began, his voice carrying across the hall and across the stars. "You have all heard stories about humans. Stories of savage creatures from a death world. Stories of monsters who could not be trusted." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "I am here to tell you those stories are wrong." Murmurs rippled through the audience, both in the hall and on the distant worlds watching. "When my people faced destruction, we sent a desperate call into the void. We did not expect anyone to answer. We had no allies with the strength to help. We had no hope." Talos lifted his head proudly. "But the humans came. They came with 9 ships against 300. They came knowing they might die. They came for strangers they had never met." He gestured to the screen behind him, which showed images of the human fleet arriving at Vellani. The damaged ships, the fierce battles, the final victory. They lost many of their own defending us. Brave souls who gave their lives so that my people could live. They asked for nothing in return. No payment, no territory, No power. They asked only that we be safe. Tears formed in Telus's 4 eyes. He did not try to hide them. I have spoken with their captain, a woman named Una. I asked her why humans fight for strangers. She told me that on their world, a world that tries to kill them every day, humans learn that they must protect each other. This instinct goes beyond their own kind. They see suffering, and they cannot turn away. They see injustice, and they must act. He looked directly into the main camera, speaking to every being watching across the galaxy. I propose that we change how we think about humans. I propose that we welcome them into the Galactic Council, not as a threat to be contained, but as allies to be embraced. They have shown us what they truly are. Now we must show them that we are worthy of their friendship. The hall erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued against the proposal. They still feared humans. They still believed the old stories. But many more were swayed by what Telus had said and what they had witnessed. The vote would take time. Politics always took time. But a change had begun, one that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Lieutenant Hana was on the surface when she received the news. A group of Vellani children surrounded her, fascinated by the human in their midst. They asked questions faster than she could answer. How can you survive on your world? Is it true you have animals with teeth bigger than my arm? Can you really eat plants and animals? Hana laughed and tried to answer each question. She had grown fond of the Vellani people. They were gentle and curious, so different from humans yet so similar in the ways that mattered. A young girl named Soli tugged on her sleeve. Lieutenant, will you stay with us? Will your people protect us forever? Hana knelt down to look at the child with her 4 bright eyes. We will stay as long as you need us. And even when we leave, we will be your friends. Whenever you call, we will come. Promise? Promise. Soli hugged her tightly. Hana felt her heart swell with emotion. This was why they had fought. This was why they had died. For moments like this, on the Ironclad, Captain Una received word of the Galactic Council proceedings. She listened to Ambassador Telos's speech and felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. He spoke well, Commander Tay observed. He did. The galaxy is changing, Captain. Because of what we did here. Una nodded slowly. I hope it changes for the better. Humans are not perfect. We have our flaws, our dark moments. If the galaxy expects us to be heroes all the time, they will be disappointed. Perhaps. But they will also see that even flawed beings can do great things. That is a lesson worth learning. The door to the bridge opened and Lieutenant Hana entered. She had returned from the surface, still wearing a smile from her time with the children. Captain, Commander, the Vellani government has sent a formal invitation. They are holding a ceremony tomorrow to honor our fallen. They want all of us to attend. Una considered this. She was not comfortable with ceremonies and praise. But the fallen deserved to be honored. Tell them we accept. The ceremony took place in the largest plaza on the Vellani homeworld. Thousands of Vellani gathered under a clear sky. Human crew members stood in neat formation, their uniforms as clean as they could manage. Ambassador Telos led the ceremony. He read the names of every human who had died defending Vellani. After each name, the crowd observed a moment of silence. Captain Sung, the crew of the Vanguard. Captain Nam of the Guardian. Her crew. Ensigns, officers, technicians, soldiers. Each name was spoken with reverence. Each name was promised to be remembered. When the list was complete, Telos unveiled a monument. It was a simple stone pillar, carved with human and Vellani symbols intertwined. At the top was a single phrase in both languages. Those who came when we called. Captain Una stepped forward to accept the medal on behalf of the fleet. It was a Vellani honor, the highest they could give. She held it carefully, feeling its weight. I accept this not for myself, she said to the crowd, but for every human who fought and died in this system. They believe that all life has value. They believe that the strong should protect the weak. They died holding on to those beliefs. She looked out at the sea of Vellani faces. Purple skin, 4 eyes, gentle expressions. Remember them. Tell your children about them. And when you see the stars, remember that somewhere out there, humans are watching. If you ever need us again, just call. We will come. The crowd erupted in cheers. Vellani and humans embraced. Food and music filled the plaza. For one perfect moment, the horrors of war faded, and joy took their place. Later that night, Una stood alone on the roof of a government building, looking up at the stars. Hannah found her there. Captain? The celebration is still going. I know. I needed a moment. Hannah stood beside her. What are you thinking about? The future. Una pointed toward a distant cluster of stars. Out there, more worlds are learning about us. Some will fear us. Some will hate us. Some will ask for our help, and we will help. When we can. When it is right. Una lowered her hand. We are not saviors, Hannah. We cannot save everyone. But we can try. That is what makes us human. The galaxy is going to be different now. Yes, it is. Hannah was quiet for a moment. I am proud to be part of this, Captain. Proud to serve under you. Una finally smiled. And I am proud of this crew. All of them. Even the ones we lost. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic